So, if you clicked on this video, it's because you wanted to watch my opinions on the Subnautica concept art for Biomes. Now, these are in no particular order, so I'll start from here. The Sea of Pillars. A series of rock pillars that propel by volcanic pressure on whatever. So this looks like a bunch of volcanic pillars that are just going to be firing balls of magma and death at you. Which, I think would be fun. Would be very fun. Super jet streams. A network of super fast currents that can send you on and your sub to unknown places and directly damage you from debris. Sorry, it's just a bit difficult to read the handwriting. But yeah, that would be a very interesting concept in Subnautica. The Black Field. This one looks extremely ominous. A terrain that spews out an intense ink-like substance to undermine visibility. Makes you vulnerable to low vision and attacks. Also a certain creature threat. So they were probably going to add maybe a Leviathan class creature, but this looks very unnerving. The black and white aesthetic doesn't help. The Cyanian rocks, like in the myth, if you don't know, the Cyanian rocks are a Greek myth. They smashed together on ships that were trying to go through them. The two continental rocks collide whenever ships try to pass. To get through safely, you have to foil it, which I think would be a very interesting part of the game as well. Pillars of Silence. A massive field of sinkholes that send off a pillar of acid. Animals that get caught in the acid melt to bones in minutes. The bones are suspended there for ages, but if you can find ways to withstand the acid, what special treasures or creatures await in the sinkholes? That would be very unnerving. Here's one of my favourites of the black and white concept arts. The Single Cell Landscape. In the deep, a seascape covers as a single life form that reacts violently to light sources. So it's the whole seabed is an aggressive life form. Turn on the light at your own risk. Here's one of the coloured concept arts. A prawn suit, the modern design, looking at a Reaper Leviathan, a ghost Leviathan in the Lost River. There's absolutely nothing remarkable about this, so I'm just going to skip it. Here's another Lost River one with a gargantuan skeleton. Same prawn suit design. The only really interesting things about this is this plant over here that kind of looks like a Lost River version of the eye stalk with green eyes, and this plant that may be one of these just in the distance, but I can't really tell. It kind of looks paler, but that could just be the way they've drawn it, who knows. Moving on, we have another bit of Lost River concept art that is not remarkable either, so I'm going to move on. This image of a prawn suit by a brine river in the Lost River with brine lilies and magma coral. Magma coral? I can't remember the name. I think it's something like magma coral. Again, this is all very up to date. This one is called Lava Zone Tumulus. So, it makes me wonder, what is this? I don't know. I don't know. Make of this what you will, because I have no idea. Here is a lava zone thing with an old prawn suit design, you might notice, being attacked by lava lizards. Here you've got an old sea moth design going through what looks like a version of the grassy plateau mixed with the safe shallows, maybe? There's a bit to note about this. For example, these creatures down here that seem to be trailing their legs. You know what they actually remind me of? They actually remind me of the spike trap plant that hasn't been implemented. You know, the dangling things ending in a little spiky doodad, but that's just a visual similarity. You've got these little green plants, little bulby plants that I don't know. You've got trails of things following the sea moth, and just trails of small fish in general that look surprisingly normal. Then you've got this little wormy fish over here that looks like a boomerang with a long tail. This next image is of the floating islands, and it looks like there are multiple in this. Apart from that, this Cyclops has an older design, and it kind of looks like these floaters have roots in some cases, or something, some other plant connecting them to the ground. Also, the flora on the islands looks a lot more Earth-like. This next image contains shuttlebugs that are creatures that are in the game. It's got this large plant/coral thing that reminds me of the floating orbs in the Grand Reef, and it's got these anemone creatures, and that's really all there is to it. I don't know. You don't really know anything about it because, again, it is concept art. This next one contains what looks like... These are organisms, because if you look, they've got little crab legs, so these are crabs, but they have these things coming out of their heads. You've got these fan plants in the distance. These organisms here, and the blurry one over here. And these plants up here that remind me of the membrane tree because they have other plants growing inside them. But of course, most obviously, you've got this horrifying abomination down here that appears to be reaching for a diver. And, yeah, it's most likely hostile, considering it's going out of its way to try and snatch this guy. Moving on. A cave concept art, actually. No, this one's just called Coral Cove. I was wondering if the name would give me a clue. Okay, so moving on to this one, we've got these dangling plants from the ceiling that make me... that they actually, to me, they look like a mix of creep vine and blood kelp. And you've got these wall tentacles. He's got his survival knife and flashlight, although the flashlight looks like it has a slightly different design, but those are just minor things. Now over here you've got a Cyclops going underneath the floating island, and everything is really normal here, so I'm moving on. The Grand Reef with the aforementioned membrane trees, you've got these little creatures flitting around over here. These little blue ones that I can't even make out, and these little yellow ones that both look really interesting. I do wish there was some smaller fauna in the game, but sadly, you know, there's not too many small biome-specific fauna, so that's a bit unfortunate. But most notably, you've got this creature that looks very interesting. It's a spiked thing, so it might be related to the boomerang, but it also has the two tentacles. Also, in the background, you've got these fish that are just delightful to look at. They kind of look like they have they're slightly transparent in the pink bits. But apart from that, that's all there is to them. Here is a early concept art for the Safe Shallows. Now, if you'll notice, a lot of the plants that are in the game are in the Safe Shallows, such as the creep vine root plant that I will eventually talk about in my unscannable flora video that I'm making. You've got the fern plant. I can't remember all of the flora names, but this one is in the game. So is this one. These are coral shell plates. These ones are in the game. I can't actually make out what that is. That kind of looks like a fish, because you can see the eye and the mouth, maybe? And those things make me think that if it is a fish, it might be related to the hoverfish. Or it just might be a weird-looking plant. But up here, you've got a bunch of fish, such as this fish, that definitely looks like it's an original design for the whole fish before it had the hole. You've got more of those flitting yellow creatures from before. You've got a boomerang with almost the exact same design. More weird blue things that may be this thing, but I can't tell. This thing that makes me think of the bladder fish. This thing that doesn't really make me think of anything. And these that are almost definitely an original design for the hoop fish. Another concept art for the safe shallows with a fully developed bladderfish. There isn't really much to say except these creatures that appear to be growing some sort of coral or barnacle or brain on their back, because if you look, it may look like a brain, but if you take a closer look, kind of looks like the barnacle sort of things from down here. So I'd say that's really what it is. Maybe it grows them for protection, and that would also give it a sort of link to the reef backs. I can't tell if these creatures are the same ones as the creatures back here. Up next, you've got the mushroom forest. You've got these plants that are actually in the finished game, but you can't scan them. They have no names. You've got these plants. These are most likely animals. They look really fleshy. You've got this thing that I think I don't know. I don't know when it comes to this thing. There's another one in the background. You've got your redwort, I believe that is. And then you've got a brain coral in the center, but instead of being empty, the brain coral looks like it's inhabited by these strange little eye worms. And this diver here appears to be using their PDA to attempt to scan it, or maybe they've just scanned it and are looking at the PDA, I don't know. But their PDA is green, which is a nice touch. This is the Lost River tree with the prawn suit. Yeah, it's the giant cove tree, it's called. The one with the ghost leviathan eggs, and that's unremarkable, so I'm going to move on. Another Lost River artwork with this creature here that I don't even know if that's a creature, it may just be a branch, because these Lost River plants are quite big. You've got the amoeboids there, you've got a bit of brine, a huge tree in the background. I do wish we could have seen more of the Lost River tree plants, because the leafless tree-like plants do make it feel a lot more like a graveyard. They make it feel a lot more empty. But if you look, you can actually see the surface as well, so that means that this wasn't very far down. And I don't want a surface Lost River, because that would just take the fun out of it. You've got these creatures as well that make me think of the rays, the ghost rays, but they don't really look the same. This creature looks like a Lost River stalker, I'm just going to say it, but I don't know what it is. Really, I can't see it well enough. You've got the lily pad islands that are one of the most famous concept arts of Subnautica, because people really like the way it looks, and I can't blame them for that. You've got a sea moth going up to these lily pad islands where this plant appears to be holding up a rock. Now, this really reminds me of the floating islands, but apart from that, there's nothing really remarkable about this. This one is called the Magma Forest, probably because all these magma tubes look like trees. Someone's taking this cyclops through it, and the most remarkable thing I can say about it is this creature in the foreground here. It appears to have 4 legs, a little tail, and a spiky head. It's looking at the cyclops. And I would love to have more creatures in Subnautica that walk, because cave crawlers and blood crawlers just... yeah, they're good, but they're not as good as they could be. This one, in the bulb zone, that's pretty unremarkable. You've got tree leeches, a hoopfish, the bulb plants. You've got some tree spawn down here. The only reason I mention it is because I can't tell if these things up here are a fan from in the game or a flora that's exclusive to this concept art. The next one is the infinite tree or the infinitree, whichever you prefer, and it appears to be a underwater plant winding up and up and up, intertwining, probably where it gets its name, from the infinity symbol. Now this one is really interesting. You've got a whole bunch of grue clusters all over it, but you've also got these. This thing here that a diver appears to be floating after, and this fish appears to have a transparent bubble for a face. And apart from that, I don't really know what to say about it. And you've got these little bluish, pinkish things that appear to look like arrowheads. You can see some in the background. They swim with tentacles. and they look like arrowheads. And it's really all I can say. You've got another thing up here, and I have no idea what it is. If you look at it, kind of looks like a fat fish that might be dead, since it looks like it's floating on the surface. Regardless, that's this image. Then you've got another one of the famous ones, the Twisty bridges. And now the Twisty bridges are famous because they might actually be added. You've got the gel sacks, you've got the hoverfish, you've got blue barnacles, you've got all that, but then you've also got these weird orange fish in the background that look quite interesting because, as I said, if this is added, I would love to see these orange fish because I would love more biome-specific small fauna. And you've got this creature that makes me think of the cuttlefish because it just it has the adorable eyes of the cuttlefish, but it also has a deadly stinger down below that it looks like it's going to whip around with. So, a deadly creature that lures you in with its adorable face. You've also got these, which are just fun all around. I don't know if they're alive, but if they are, that would be funny, because this one kind of looks like it's watching. That's really all I've got for the Biomes concept art. So that's been my opinion on the Subnautica Biomes concept art. Watch the other ones if you want.